We're in the Beaches neighborhood in Toronto, the Fox Theatre, with Jay Baruchel. How are you?
I'm well, thank you.
Yeah, really nice to meet you.
Likewise.
Looking forward to chatting with you, but I just want to warm up a little bit. I'm going to throw 3 or 4 things out. Quick answer.
Please.
Okay?
Please.
Hollywood.
It's a place.
Montreal.
It's the place.
Seth Rogen.
He's family.
And Blackberry.
Oh, a terrific movie and an even more terrific device.
Okay, lots more to talk about, but first let's take a look at Jay's life in 30 seconds. After a modest start in Canadian television, Jay Baruchel got his big Hollywood break in the early 2000s.
Excuse me. We're like having a party tonight. Do you like want to come?
His work in Judd Apatow's Undeclared led to a number of blockbuster roles.
You know what your problem is, Kirk?
What?
You're a moodle.
A moodle?
A man poodle.
But he never felt comfortable in Hollywood, so he soon returned home to Canada, where his passion for the Habs is matched by his desire to tell Canadian stories on film. And it doesn't get more Canadian than his latest role, the man who pioneered the Blackberry.
That guy is sketchy. I don't think he's sketchy.
I started by asking Jay about those early days in Los Angeles. You were, what, maybe 18 years old, and you moved to Los Angeles, to Hollywood, to work on a program with Seth Rogen, Judd Apatow, Jason Segel.
Yeah.
What was that like?
It's crazy, man. It's like all of my friends were spending money to go and go to university, and I was getting paid to pretend that I was. It was sick. It was the best. I was 18. It's my first time living alone, and it's there. You know, it wasn't like Sarnia. Like my first time was living in Hollywood, literally in like West Hollywood and shit. I was very lucky. A lot of people have it far worse than me. I need to stress that. But at the same time, I could never call it easy. You know, and the fact that I came out of that era without any sort of like crippling addictions or let's say inconvenient mental issues. All of my mental issues are manageable. so like I don't know how. I do. My mom raised me right, and I, you know, was surrounded by pretty good people. But boy, it could have gone either way.
Also, you had the benefit of CBC News World.
Yes, I did.
I read that
It's true, though.
you had a cable system that got much music and News World,
yeah.
and that was for a 18-year-old kid who couldn't drive in Los Angeles.
I lived
he was
off
feeling
it.
lonely.
Yeah, it saved me.
We were your lifeline.
You joke, you bring it up with your tongue near your cheek, but I swear to God, man, like that was a big thing. That was the only channels that I had. Those are the only channels I had on in my apartment.
Hosted by frontline journalists Joe Schlesinger and Ian Hanomansing on News World International.
I have always been someone who gets homesick super easy. I was always the kid that would like call my parents from a sleepover right before it was bedtime. We were watching movies, it was fine. We were eating pizza, it was fine. When it was time to go to bed, I would lose my shit, and I'd always have to call Dad to come and rescue me.
Wow.
You know, and so to me, it's not crazy that I had a version of that down there. And so I just like made my little piece of Hollywood sovereign Canadian soil. And so when you would come into my apartment, yeah, there'd be a big Canadian flag on the wall and News World would be on. Yeah.
Speaking of your dad, you wrote a fantastic book, which made me laugh out loud, even as you talked about the trauma within your family and your difficult relationship with your dad, who you describe as having been an addict and died young and died after being estranged from you. How much does that relationship shape who you turned out to be?
At least 50% of who I am is because of that. It's hard not to, like, for better or worse, you know. I think, like, my dad, for me, was as much a cautionary tale as a sort of inspiration. No, not as much. I'll say, let's go 70 cautionary, 30 inspired. Inspiring. Because he was dead. My father was a fucking garbage fire. I never once saw my father sober. I have no idea what that looks like, you know, because he was like, he was frigged from about 11 a.m. every single day. And he's popping a lot of pills and still blowing rails and all this stuff, like ugly shit. So the good part of that is when you grow up in the like third act of Goodfellas, when it's just paranoia and clammy, pallid skin and irritability and the hard drugs lose their kind of sex, their allure, right? So I, to this day, have never tried cocaine. I've never tried half of the shit my dad did because out of either fear of being him, but also just like it never seemed appealing. He also is, to his credit, he's part of why I'm still in this kind of world, because he would rent a movie every Friday and Saturday night, and I'd wake up early the next morning, Saturday morning and Sunday morning, and if the tape was still in the VCR, that meant that, oh, mom and dad think I'm okay, it's okay for me to watch. If it was back in this case, it was like sort of too racy for me. So this meant that dad fed me movies, and often with a sort of like 101 course before it of why this movie is good, why he liked it, his memory seeing it the first time. My father really just wanted me to have a thing I cared about. And his dad never went to a single one of his fucking hockey games. The entire time he played hockey. And so he was like, he had it in his mind that no matter what, I'm not going to be that. And so if my kid likes movies, I'm going to lean into that. So he bought me movie books every single Christmas. He always just bought me books about movies. Sometimes it was the Leonard Maltin Guide. Sometimes it was literally the in-house like buyer's catalog that a video store would have when there was come time for them to order next month's movies. And he would just be like, what can I give you for that? Because my kid will read it.
Stop talking! Listen up!
So, Adrienne, can you give us like the sort of final third of his trajectory leading up to the hit? Because that's what we're going to cover on Sean.
So, Canadian guy, you've done a couple of movies about a hockey enforcer, Goon, now Blackberry, and I kind of feel like, trilogies are nice. So years from now, people should look back at the J. Baruchel Canadian trilogy. So you need to do one more topic. What would that be?
Oh boy, that's so nice of you to ask, and you're going to regret asking.
Is it about me?
Ian! Exclamation mark. It's a sort of musical about rookie cub reporter fighting his way through the CBC Halifax newsroom.
Exactly. I like that. That works for me.
No, all I want to do is to immortalize, to romanticize without glorifying Canadian stories. I think that, in English Canada, it's something that we have historically not been great at. For good, honorable reasons, because I think that we inherit a sort of stiff upper lip from the Brits, but we're also raised next to the crucible of Americana, and I know that and it's a very condescending, patronizing thing that we do to ourselves, where we don't want to be like them, and we're not the fireworks people. So the cost of that is that if you go down on the street corner, all of these kind of flashpoints of Canadian history that in a lot of other countries would be part of the sort of origin myth of that country, people don't know. There are people out there that won't know what the Halifax explosion is. There are people that, I could go on. There's a whole bunch of people out there who probably know the name Vimy Ridge, but don't know what happened there. They know the name Billy Bishop because there's an airport, but they don't know why we named an airport after him. Darcy McGee, there's anyway. So I want to spend my entire career telling Canadian stories and making them part of our kind of common cultural tapestry, because there is some fascinating shit that has happened here, just like in any other country, and it's okay to admit that. And by admitting that, you're not necessarily qualifying it. You don't have to say it's good or bad. It's just interesting and it happened.
And so where does the Blackberry movie fit in all of that?
So the story of Blackberry, of these kind of Canadian nerds who, tried to innovate in earnest and sort of had a sort of cockeyed kind of good faith approach to entrepreneurship ultimately get ruined by the monster of laissez-faire capitalism. And I think that is something that can resonate throughout this country. So I think that Blackberry is an important Canadian story because, number one, it sets the table for the world that we live in now, the way that we relate to one another, the way that news is disseminated, the way that families sort of know each other, the way the world understands each other, the way that elections are won and lost is in large part on a device in your hand. Mm-hmm. And that is something that some nerds in Waterloo created. They are not household names.
Okay. 25% for 250,000.
50% for $50.
33% for 125,000, and you can run the company with me.
Mike, no! Yes, deal.
So toiling in anonymity, but creating such an important thing to sort of global culture, what's more Canadian than that?
Well, when you're ready to do Ian ! Give me a call.
You got it. Done and done.
Real pleasure talking to you.
Thank you for having me.